Welcome to Ion Foxborough. I'm Karen Guregian. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Aaron Schatz, the Chief Analytics Officer at FTNFantasy and the creator of DVOA, an invaluable tool for many of us sports writers and the football community. Um, Aaron has also put out a 2024 fantasy almanac that I recommend. I'll let you know how to get that at the end of the show. But anyway, welcome, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Um, it's been an interesting year for the Patriots for a couple reasons, but the quarterbacks most notably. I know before the season started, you had projected them to be a seven-win team.
Yeah,
And
didn't work out.
well, I don't know. There's still time there. Um, can you go over with us what that prediction was based on? And I'm guessing it would probably be their defense.
Yes, absolutely. And that was before the Judon trade, I'll point
Mm,
out. Um, the Patriots had a top 10 defense last year,
mm,
despite having tons of injuries, right? They were getting back their best pass rusher and their best young cornerback. And I just thought that, everything indicated that this team would have a top 10 defense again. The Judon trade made that a little less likely. It was hard to figure out just how much to factor in the departure of Belichick
mm,
because it's not like I have a lot of other teams that lost the best head coach in history to use as, examples of what would happen previously. So I figured this is a team that would, stumble along with a bad offense, but probably not the worst in the league, and that they would win some games like 16-13 with a good defense, and that they would win like 7 games. But the defense has collapsed. The defense absolutely has collapsed. It turns out to be one of the worst in the league. Um, there's still some pieces there, I think, to build a defense for the future,
mm,
especially now that Christian Barmore is back, but just a lot of
mm.
things that they do on defense have just not worked out this year. Even tackling, which is like every year the Patriots are one of the best tackling teams, has not been good this year.
One of the worst. Just to give the audience some numbers, DVOA wise, I believe overall they're 30th, 31st against the pass, 28th against the run, and 28th in overall EPA. Not good.
No, the defense it's just completely collapsed.
Can you, is it possible to quantify or come up with the way they might most miss not having Belichick running the controls?
No, it's really hard. That's the problem is that that's something that's so hard to quantify. I think watching the team, and for folks who don't know, I'm local. I'm
Mm,
in Auburn,
mm,
so I watch this team a lot. And watching the team, it seems like players are just not in the right position. Like they're just not being used correctly. Like Jelani Tavai,
way
like I
out.
know, for example, I don't put a ton of weight into Pro Football Focus's grades, but I know that, for example, he was graded very well last year and very badly this year. And I think that's an example of a player who's not being used in a way that features his strengths. And there's a lot of that, but that's again, it's really kind of hard to quantify that.
Hmm.
You can take a look at numbers, different defensive numbers for specific players, and but it's hard to quantify just what Belichick meant.
Hmm. Yeah, and of course, injuries also factor in with Jawan Bentley out. I think that's put Tavai out of position, and I
Yep.
don't. And I'm not sure if they actually had a ready replacement for Jawan Bentley when he went down, and Tavai was the choice, and again, it's like his effectiveness. isn't quite what it was because again, he's doing things he's not accustomed to doing, I believe. So,
Yeah, I also think they miss Barmore a lot.
yeah.
And pass rush wise, like they don't have guys who necessarily win one-on-one a lot
Mm,
without Matthew Judon. Now, I'm not sure Matthew Judon would have been that guy because if you look at the Atlanta pass rush has not been good
yeah.
this year. So it's possible that they got value for a player who wouldn't have been what he was in the past,
Mm,
but they're missing what he was in the past.
yeah. And I know prior to the start of the season, you graded their safeties relatively high,
Right.
and not having Jabril Peppers, uh, I think has been tough. And Kyle Duggar being hurt also changes those dynamics. Uh,
Yeah,
and
the Peppers, they missed Peppers, and I don't know what his legal situation is at this point, so I don't know if he's ever playing for this team again.
yeah, it's hard to know. They've had to mix in some younger guys, Del Pettis, so I think, the defense has been the disappointing
Yeah.
disappointing side of the ball. Now let's flip on the other side. Um, you, I know you probably, I think you anticipated Drake May would play, perhaps not this soon, but how much does it change, you know, with a Jacoby Brissett run offense as opposed to what we're seeing now in terms of the probability of them winning?
It's better now.
Hmm.
It's not as much better as you might think.
Hmm.
Like their offensive DVOA with May as the quarterback is only a couple of percentage points better than with Brissett
Hmm.
as the quarterback. I think that the sort of range of possibilities is wider, right? Because he'll make rookie mistakes and throw picks, but at the same time, he'll do great things, and you never know which is coming. And that's just what it means to have a rookie, right? Like he ended up being a very typical highly drafted rookie, which is that the overall performance is not great, but you see the promise of the future when
Hmm.
he does certain things, um, and that gives you hope that he'll develop.
Hmm. I think typically the expectation is for, I guess, rookie quarterbacks not to be particularly good
Yeah.
their first year. Um, where have you seen in your numbers, in your statistics, where perhaps is May ahead of the curve, if anywhere?
Um, I don't think he's there. I can't think of a particular number where you go, he's particularly ahead of the curve. Like, I don't think he's particularly strong against pressure, if I remember correctly. I looked at this last week for an article I was writing about someone else. I don't think he's particularly strong on third downs or anything. I think you see it more in that he makes decisions and then he makes certain throws. He makes NFL throws like that. The touchdown to Keyshawn Booty in his first start was like, oh my God, this guy could be the guy. Like it just made you say, and there's going to be situations like last week where apparently him and Douglas were on the wrong page about what they were supposed to do with a certain coverage, and it led to the interception in overtime. Not overtime, sorry. I think I'm thinking about,
It was a last series.
yeah, the end of the Rams game.
They were trying to win the game. They
I was
got,
thinking that the Rams game ended with an interception and the Titans game ended with an
yeah,
interception. But
that's right. Yeah.
over time, this is what you expect from a highly drafted rookie quarterback. You expect a guy who's going to be overall below average, but with those signs of promise and not horrible, right? Not like what Bryce Young was last year,
Mm,
and but not as good as what Jaden Daniels has been.
mm,
And that's essentially what you've gotten with May, with the asterisk that he's behind the worst pass blocking line in the league by multiple metrics,
mm,
with questions about how good his receivers are. So, like, he's not in the best situation here, and he's performing at a reasonable level, despite the fact that everything around him is kind of awful.
Hmm. And I think in some cases, as I said, I enjoy analytics, different metrics, you know, consulting those. But sometimes your eyes tell you something that perhaps numbers don't. And I think that kind of applies to May a little bit, whereas he doesn't have wins, but I wouldn't put that,
Yeah.
on him. He's made mistakes, but I just think watching him, as you said, you can sort of see that a promise. You can see
Yeah.
potential, and it should be exciting to the Patriots fan base.
Yeah, we haven't realized it yet. We can't think that we have, like, he's not having the kind of rookie season that Jaden Daniels is having. But you see the signs of promise. It does feel like he's getting better every week. His numbers are getting better every week.
Mm,
So it does feel like he's on the rise. Um, so I mean, I agree with you. I think they found the guy. I
mm,
think that this guy is going to be one of the guys. It feels like once they get stuff around him, I mean, I don't need to say to anybody that the offensive line is been awful. It's been a wreck with injuries and it hasn't been good. And then the receivers, like Polk has been, I think, a disappointment. It's not just that he's had problems when he gets thrown the ball. He's not getting open to get thrown the ball in a way that you would want a high second round pick.
mm. I know the fear he's gonna wind up in the Patriots second round graveyard
Yeah.
with a few other choices.
Dobson and Bethel Johnson and Chad Jackson. And my God, it's a long list.
On who they Tyquan Thornton, who they
Yep.
just shipped out. I don't know, maybe Kansas City can make something of Tyquan Thornton, but your projection of Polk, I believe, was not quite as a number one receiver. It was more like a two or a three. Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
I think we thought he would be more like a two.
Yeah.
Um, but a good, his projection was good. He had a good numbers in college. And the thing about Polk is the same thing about Odunze and McMillan, which is they all had to share the ball with each other. So when you're projecting a guy from his college statistics, you have to account for the fact that at a certain point, if you have multiple great receivers on a team, you can't get the ball all the time. And the same was true with Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors at LSU, right? So, but at Washington, there were three of those guys. So, I mean, I think Polk looked good. I would have expected him to be better than this.
What was your early thoughts on Javon Baker? Struggled to get on the field.
Yeah, he's not a guy I know much about, and we have really haven't seen much of him. I think you can kind of write him off as fourth round picks. Sometimes just don't do anything as rookies.
But I wanted to ask you just about the receivers in general. I know last year the metric had them at from game to game over 50% seeing man coverage. And, obviously I would man cover them because again, they don't separate. Are we
Right.
seeing the same type of thing this year?
I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't have that number right at my fingertips to check, but my guess is yes, because I think that you have the same problems with the receivers, which is that they're not great separators, and there's no clear number one. I'm going to speed down the field, and that was what Tyquan Thornton was supposed to be, and it never happened. And they still need that guy. Whether they get that guy in free agency with someone like T. Higgins or they use a first round pick on that guy, they need that guy.
Mm. Predictively, like next year, obviously you'll have a sample of Drake Maye. You'll have to factor in what they do in the draft and free agency and so forth. But just again, based on Drake Maye, would you anticipate their number rising in terms of what they might do next year?
Based on both May
Yeah.
being in his second year and the fact that they're going to have a ton of salary cap space to help him. I
Hmm.
would definitely anticipate this offense being better next year. My guess right now would be we would project it to be kind of average
Hmm.
next year, which is still a good improvement over what it is this year and has the promise of being more.
Hmm. Let me throw this one at you. There's been talk about true or false. Gerard Mayo denied it that the Crafts have gone out and are looking to find ways to better handle Drake Maye because they know they have a pot of gold here and they don't want to blow it like they did with Mac Jones. Some people have taken that to mean that Alex Van Pelt might not last. If How much would changing the coordinator, say, from year one to year two for a quarterback, how much would that impact your analytics?
It's a really interesting, usually teams that change coordinators, all else being equal, take a little bit of a step back,
Hmm.
right? Because you have to learn new lingo and a new style of doing things. Usually teams that replace coordinators are bad, and the effect of regression to the mean is stronger than the effect of changing coordinators. But all else being equal, you take a little bit of a step back. That being said, we have definitely found that if you have a coordinator from the McVay and Shanahan schools, you project better.
Hmm.
Now, it's weird because, like, for example, the guy that I thought might make a good head coach last year was Bobby Slowick. And now Bobby Slowick's not impressing anybody with what the Houston offense is doing this year. So, be wary of fool's gold, I guess. But there is a little bit of a feeling of if they can get someone out of that tree, it might be worth making the change. But there is definitely something to be said for the consistency of having the same coordinator for multiple years. I mean, when they hired Van Pelt, he doesn't have a history of developing quarterbacks, so you have no idea whether he's good or bad at it.
Hmm. Yeah. Basically, my thought on that is, you might be playing with fire a little bit. And again, in terms of the development of May, and instead of him hitting the ground running and really knowing the system after a year in it, to toss it out
Yep.
and start over, May's going to have to start over. And in my view, you want him to hit the ground running. So, but we'll see. We'll see how that shakes out. Um, do you, the numbers are tough, but is there anything else that would lend reason for optimism beyond Drake May?
Yeah, the two things is first of all, that defense is less consistent than offense.
Hmm.
And second, what we call the plexiglass principle, which is teams that significantly decline from year to year tend to bounce back in the third season. So
Hmm.
that would suggest the defense is not going to, both of those things would suggest the defense is not going to be this bad next year. They'll get guys healthy back, they'll bounce back a little bit. There's just the natural regression towards the mean being stronger on defense. Like they're not going to be 30th on defense or whatever next year. And so that obviously helps the team overall because, May can't win games if the defense is letting the other team score 30 points all the time.
Hmm. Getting back to kind of the Bill Belichick component for a minute, Gerard Mayo t- took over head coach. He learned under Belichick, but him being a player's coach, so to speak, the thought would be that he might be a little more aggressive, perhaps, than Coach Belichick was. He would go more on fourth down. He would gamble a little bit more again because again he doesn't have the team, to match up against a lot of these teams, and yet he's been just the opposite. I
Yeah.
mean, he's been like cautious to a fault. Does that play out too, metrically?
I mean, I would like to see him be more aggressive. And younger coaches are generally more aggressive than older coaches. So I would like to see him be more aggressive. I mean, he's not like the most conservative coach in the league. That would be Antonio Pierce, but I would like to see him be more aggressive. Now, if you told me that he felt like it's easier for him to be aggressive once they build the offensive line next year, okay, I'll buy that. But if they build the offensive line for next year, he better be more aggressive.
Yeah. Well, again, my thinking is you watch Drake Maye in the Tennessee game in that final minute get the ball in the end zone. I mean, you saw what he did. He ran around for 12 seconds.
Yeah.
Somehow he found Ramondre Stevenson. And again, I believe it was fourth down on the 2 yard line. And we advance. Actually, it was on the 4 yard line. We advance to Sunday's game with the Rams, 4th and 2, kick the field goal. Again, it
You
just
want to see more aggressiveness and more consistency, yes. And I would have gone for that 4th and 2 with the idea that given how the Rams offense has been playing, you need touchdowns to beat the Rams. You need the touchdowns. Go get the touchdown or try to get the touchdown. Yes.
seemed logical to me. I did want to ask you too, in terms, I don't know if you have the numbers in front of you, but I figured I'd ask anyway. On the 67-yard touchdown pass that Matthew Stafford threw to Cooper Kupp, the Patriots decided that first series that they were going to go zero blitz. Uh,
Yeah.
did you have, number one, have you found their defense or DeMarcus Covington to be aggressive? And number two, would the analytics have backed it up? How good is Matthew Stafford against
I don't have that in front of me. They're not one of the highest blitzing teams in the league.
the Patriots? Right.
Yeah, I think they're kind of average in how often that they blitz, if I remember correctly from the last time that I looked at this. So they're not like a low blitz team, but they're not like a high blitz team either. They're sort of in the middle.
Yeah. And again, I'm sure it's a little tough for them to gauge that because, again, they're not really generating pass rush, basically not having Judon anymore, Barmore being out all year. Uh, so if you might not have it from your pass rushers, but you can generate it with your blitzing with your safeties and linebackers. And I think last year they might have had one of the higher rates um, for sacks from their linebackers and safeties, if I'm not mistaken, or
I
something.
think I think you are right. But from off-ball linebackers. Yeah, it's weird because they play a weird defense where like one of the edge rushers is a linebacker, but the other edge rusher is a defensive end. So like the way it's listed is kind of weird. But yeah, from like the middle of the pack, the middle of the field guys, and then safeties and Duggar and everything. And yeah,
Hmm. Before I let you go, I'm going to ask you if, there's 6 games to play, I believe, for the Patriots. Is there any predictions that you could make about them the rest of the way, or anything to look for based on your numbers?
I mean, they average only 4.2 wins right now in our simulations, but I think they can get to five. I think they can win two of these last six. We have them with the strongest chance of getting the number one pick, but it's like by like 1% over other teams. We have them at 19% to get the number one pick. So they could easily get like the five or like the pick could be. There's a lot of bad teams going jockeying back and forth, sort of jockeying or whatever you would call not trying to lose. It's complicated, but they may end up with that one pick. It would be really interesting if they did, because I would think that they would trade down with a team that needed a quarterback, and that would help them to get more assets to help build for the future. But I mean, I think they can win two more games, and I think that you want to. I honestly think it's better for them to have the 5 or 6 pick and a little bit more of a winning culture than to feel like, oh my God, we went 3-14. But at least you get the number one. Like you've got the guy, we've got the quarterback now. So the need to have that top pick is less than when you didn't have the quarterback.
Is you're having them as the highest probability to get the number one pick based on your strength of schedule and
Yeah,
what
it's based on how often a team with a certain DVOA beats a team with a certain DVOA plus home field advantage. We play out the rest of the season 25,000 times. So we have them at 19, we have Tennessee at 18, we have Cleveland at 18, we have Vegas at 15, and the Giants at 10, but that might be higher now that DeVito is the quarterback for the Giants. So I don't know quite how much to penalize them for making a change at quarterback from a guy who was bad to a guy who is bad.
better.
I don't know if he's worse or not, honestly.
Hey, he beat the Patriots last year.
Yeah, beat the Packers. So, I mean,
Who knows, right?
but there's a lot of teams in the mix for those high draft picks. But the Patriots are in the mix. But I think it would be better for them to have more wins and feel more like a winning culture than to get the number one pick since they've got the quarterback already.
I agree with you because we've seen it in previous regimes, whether it was Bill Parcells' first year or Bill Belichick's first year. Their records weren't, I think they were both like 5-10 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think the difference being is like they start out, but they finished really strong. And Belichick's first year, they finished real strong. So you were kind of uplifted going into the off season and had a better feeling about yourselves moving forward.
And
So
you want players to feel like this is a team that can build it to a winner. And in particular, you want free agents to feel like this is a team that can build into a winner and want to come here. And I honestly think players would want to come here more if there are a couple of wins at the end of the season than if they lose out the string and it's like, oh my God, it's hopeless there, you know?
I agree. I mean, they've got, it's going to help if Drake Maye continues on his upward path and trajectory. Free agent Singh, that might be a fun place to go with him there.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to it. And wins are part of it. What they do in the off season is part of it as well. So it'll be interesting to see how all those things play
It's
out.
just a very different place. Like, I mean, are they one of the worst teams in the league this year? Yeah. But they have hope in a way that a lot of other teams don't. They have hope and Minnesota's winning this year, but right, they've got the young quarterback and everything, as opposed to the Jets, who look like a complete mess right now, and the Giants, who look like a complete mess right now, and Carolina, where I think we've pretty much all given up on Bryce Young. And I mean, this is just much better to be the Patriots right now than those teams.
I'm gonna mark those words. It's much better to be to be the Patriots in those seats, and I agree. Aaron, thank you so much for your time, and again, for people listening in, his almanac is available. FTN, I think this is right. FTNFantasy.com/almanac.
Yep. And you find all my work at ftnfantasy.com/DVOA. And let me mention, by the way, FTN has a ton of good stuff like daily fantasy optimizers and picks and stuff in other sports. I only do the NFL, but there are people who do other sports. And so there's a lot of good content. Folks should come and check us out.
Please do. Thanks, Aaron.
All right. Thanks a lot.